Notts County Talk, back with episode 9 of the Pavis Perspective podcast. As you can see, I'm not joined by George this evening. He got lost in London after the Football Content Award yesterday, and I haven't seen him or heard from him in coming on about 20 hours. No, not really, but I've got Matt with me. Matt has been on the channel numerous times, and I think Matt, you're still our most viewed video of when we got relegated against.
Yeah, I sadly had a look earlier when I was trying to impress someone that I was doing this. It's about 4,500 views of a picture of me going something like that. I had hair back then, so better times, League Two and hair.
I think the two most viewed videos are the two lowest points since I've had the channel: the loss to Swindon and the watch along against Hornchurch, which was a disaster. But
well, let's hope for a 0-8 at the weekend, then you might get some views.
Exactly. Right, before we go on to Pavis Perspective, some of you will have seen that yesterday I went to Football Content Awards with George. It was in London, very nice hotel, very, very good event. We didn't actually win. We came sort of mid top tens, which, you know, is absolutely fantastic. The people we met there was really good. Ollie Bayliss that kept us in the loop during the pandemic. And we met people like Robbie from AFTV, you know, some footballers there, David Wheater, a couple of others, and just a very good event. So on behalf of George, obviously can't be here tonight. We want to thank you for everyone that actually voted for us or at any point shared any of our content or even watched us, because obviously we couldn't do it without any of you guys. So without further ado, Matt, let's get on to the Pavis Perspective. So
let's do it.
Yeovil last weekend, for me, it was a must win. Was that how you saw it?
It was a big game. It wasn't just a big game in the perspective of, you know, a decent team. I mean, I know they looked low on points, but they also played a considerably less games than a lot of the teams in the league. It was a big game because of the 3 last games. And it's probably the first time in a long time people will have seen Notts go 1-0 up, 2-0 up, and they won't have gone, yes, great, 3 points. They'll probably have been more nervous at 2-0 than 0-0. So, yeah, a really big game, not just in the context of it, but also a big game because Notts got themselves in that same position that they had against Halifax, for example. But this time, they'd righted their wrongs. It was kind of the redemption game.
Yeah, for me, Kyle Cameron coming back, I obviously travelled with George and it was a long journey. But to see Kyle Cameron back in, you know, Lacey dropped out. I was a bit worried that Lacey's out with a knock again. Was he brought back too soon with the defensive problems against, I think it was Altrincham that sort of started? But Cameron came back, and I liken him to David Luiz at the start of the season, where he'll have a good game and then he'll do something stupid. Do you know what I mean?
He was prone. He seemed to have a good knack of making a mistake that would lead to a goal and then scoring one himself. But I mean, the stats don't lie. We haven't lost, to the best of my knowledge, when Cameron has started. So, I mean, there's got to be a pattern. Sometimes it's not always a player's ability which makes them a great player or makes them a great asset to the team. A lot of the time, it can be what they bring as a leader or as a teammate. And, you know, Kyle Cameron must have something. I mean, he got made captain of the team when he was signed in the summer. And every time he's been in the squad, Notts have performed and Notts have got a result. So I do think, you know, whatever you think about Kyle Cameron's performance, there is something more to his game which is beneficial to this team.
If there's one thing I wish, you know, a couple of Mondays ago, it was the Monday after the Altrincham game, it was the fans forum. And I was kicking myself for not asking how, it might have come across a bit cheeky, but how Cameron actually became captain, because he walked straight into a side that there's still some pretty big characters in that squad. You know, there's Jim O'Brien, there's Kyle Wootton, who's vice captain. There's even people in that squad like Rawlinson that 2 years ago won our player of the season.
Yeah,
Slocum. I do know from speaking to Dion after our interview that I think, if I'm right, that Slocum was one of the top choices, but was overlooked because Birchland didn't want someone from the back. They wanted someone that's going to be on the pitch. So I kind of get that. What I will say about Cameron, and you're talking about not just his ability, that's the best game I've seen Brennan play. And I feel like he played well because Cameron was with him. I'd been with Lacey before, but that was a collapse at Halifax. Did you go to the Halifax game?
No, sadly. Well, I was going to say sadly not.
sadly,
I don't think sadly is the key word. No, I did not. And I'm glad for it.
Yeah, from what I've seen in the highlights of that, for me, I love Alex Lacey and I love Palmer, but those two players should have had enough experience to see us through that game.
Definitely, that's the thing. The experience is the thing, and that I think where I'm not laying the blame on anyone, but they obviously got a lot of young players in there, including the two low knees. Maybe that inexperience was something that did hamper us in the game management. And Birchnell spoke about this. It was the game management that was the issue. A lot of the times when we've seen knots in the past, it's been a result. It's been one of those where you score a goal or score 2 goals, and they just sit back, and you'd be like, the other team are going to score here. Whereas this season, it seems to be quite the opposite. It's, okay, guys, you can take your foot off the gas here. You can, protect what you've got, and it's finding that happy medium at the moment. Because I don't think Notts, certainly in the period of the 3 games or the 2 games anyway, where they went back to back, sort of 3-1 or 3-2s, got the balance right of what to do when they were in the lead.
Yeah, because it's games like this. Woking at home at 1-0, 1-0, they were completely dead and buried.
Yeah,
and if that's a Premier League game, and I don't want to liken Notts to one of the bigger teams, but it's the sort of the context. It would probably have been like a Liverpool against maybe a Southampton or a Burnley maybe, and 1-0's enough, and you'll cruise through and you maybe get one near the end. I think Birchnell's realising you can't do that in this division, because you don't kill the game off. You let 4 goals in the last 15 minutes and you get absolutely ripped to shreds. So it's a learning curve. It's a steep learning curve.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I know people get very hamstrung on if a manager's managed in the league before, and I'm not one that is of that mindset. However, that might be something that Birchnell has learnt over the last couple of weeks, that the playing style is different in the National League. I know it's a lot more fluid and modern in comparison to what it was 10, 15 years ago. In fact, more recently, probably 5 years ago.
I'd say 3. I'd generally say 3 years ago.
I mean,
or 2.
I know we're slightly going away from it here, but the quality that some of the teams play in this league, I don't know if you like, the good old days where you watched on like Setanta Sports, when it was like Grays Athletic versus Stays or something. It was just hoofball. But it's not. There's a lot of really good players. There's a lot of really good teams down here, and I think it does translate really well how he's played from a higher quality caliber of players as he did to Sweden. But there is still that element of last 10 minutes, let's lob the ball forwards, let's desperately try to get a goal that maybe, without being the fountain of knowledge on Swedish and Danish or Norwegian football, probably isn't in that league. It's a lot more, it's a slower pace, it's a lot less aggressive. And I hope for his sake and Notts' sake, that's something that he'll learn, really. Well,
I spoke with Ollie Bayliss last night between the awards being given out. Ollie obviously was fantastic throughout, the pandemic. He was very, very good, as I've mentioned. And we were both sort of saying, or George as well, this league is so strong. No disrespect. You look at the top of League 2, the top 2 are Forest Green and Harrogate. And that's no disrespect. They've earned where they are. But then you've got Stockport, Notts, Wrexham, Chesterfield. We're down there for a reason. We are. And the way that all of these teams have recruited, this league is so difficult to get out of. We're one automatic place. I mean, I feel like last season, I've said it multiple times, last season, the more I look back, the more I feel regret, because Sutton United went up automatic. Come on.
I mean, you look at League 2 at the moment, and pretty much I think the last 4 teams to be promoted. So what have we got? Barrow, Sutton, Harrogate, and Hartlepool are all in the top half. They're all well-established teams. And as you're saying, Harrogate are well up there.
Sutton are 7th, I think.
It's not. There are different teams. I mean, you've seen a team league go up from League 1 to the Championship. You expect them to be staying up as a good result, but it's not like that in National League to League 2. It's a very similar league. There are teams with there's probably a handful of teams. If you look at probably ourselves, Stockport, Wrexham, Chesterfield, who've probably got budgets that could compete in League One.
Definitely.
It's not a question of we'd be okay in League Two. We'd probably still, the four of us, be up the top end of League Two, or expect or have the budget to be up the top end of League Two. It's it's crazy. It's completely different to what it was.
It is. There's a few things that have come out today that I want to talk about. We'll get a few questions in first. If you have got any questions, just drop them in the chat and we'll put them up. So the first one. So considering Notts' home average attendance of 5,000, what are your thoughts on taking 5 days to sell 900 tickets? And there were still some left at 5 o'clock today. The first batch sold very quickly. I do know that. The first batch had, within the first day and a half, maybe first 48 hours, they'd sold quite well, which is obviously very good. I don't know. There's a lot of takes on this one. I think my take on this is that we've got 2 home games coming up. If you're not a season ticket holder, that's £40 if you're an adult. And it's a game you'd expect Notts to win. You could be looking, if Notts win, they could get a decent away trip to, I think, teams like Sunderland coming in the next round, don't they? They do, I think.
Yeah, first round proper. You got League One, too.
People are just being a bit cautious of that, I think. I think I wouldn't worry too much that we've not sold 900. I know, didn't we sell 1,000 for Altrincham or something like that when we're on an unbeaten run? But this is, I don't know. I don't really know what to make of it. I think we've done all right.
If you're thinking 1 in 5 home fans are taking an hour and a half trip to a team 4 divisions below us for an FA Cup match, which we've notoriously done terrible in that competition, I don't think it's bad at all. I really don't think it's bad. Taking almost 1,000 for an away game is good, period. It is good when you're driving an hour and a half in a competition which, by and large, isn't, we're not going to win it. We're not going to get anywhere near winning it. And our priority this season it's not staying up and this is a fun away day. It's not consolation and this is a fun away day. This is a promotion season. We're going for promotion season. So any cup to me this season isn't a priority. And, I think to get 1,000 Notts fans going there or just short of at 850 or 900, what it is, I think is a really good effort.
Are you one of those 850?
Yes.
Yes, so am I. Yeah, it's got to be. I really, really like the FA Cup, and I'm going to bring this in. I've never heard of this person ever. James Royston. Not heard of him before. May have been on the channel. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, sounds
how
weird.
much we actually care about the FA Cup. I really, really like it, especially when you come through this qualifying round, because I don't know. It feels like you get a proper cup run, and I want a team now, I want a team in a bigger division. I want to go and beat someone like your Portsmouths, your Sunderlands. I want to go and take them on. And if we win this round and we get a favourable draw, all of a sudden you're into round 2. And is that championship round?
Round 3, I think, is championship.
Round 3. All of a sudden you could be playing some pretty big teams. You could obviously be playing some small teams like Forest, but there could be some big teams in there as well. And I think with the squad we've got at the minute and the way, Kyle Walton's settled as a striker. You've got a few players set. You need a competition. I've got the FA Trophy. You need a competition that's going to A, keep you winning, B, motivate the players to get into a side. If we get Sunderland at home, every player is going to up the game to stay in that side for that game. And also, it's just good to give players minutes. It is. It's very good to give players minutes. And also, the money raised will be high on the agenda. Yeah, it starts to get some decent. It's not like the FA Trophy where it's like £400 for winning the first round.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not love the FA Cup? I mean, who hasn't sat on their TV and watched a Premier League footballer on 120 grand get snapped by a bloke who's like a part-time mechanic and not think, I love this competition? You've got to love the FA Cup. Yeah, you've got to love the FA Cup.
I tend to sit on the sofa.
There's always an upset. There's always an upset. And you know what? we've been that upset. I was there at Salford when we lost, when we were a joke. Like, we were a joke.
Were you?
People have been there for Kettering, I think, back in the times where it's like Jay Smith or someone scored for us. We've been that joke, but also we've been that team that drew against Man City. We've been that team that's, took Premier League teams right to the edge.
Yeah.
And if you don't love that, if you don't see the beauty in that, then the FA Cup, I guess, just isn't for you.
I'm going to have the FA ringing me up and have that as an advert for the FA Cup.
I know. I am welcome. As long as you're paying me, I am down.
Were you at the Swansea game? Was that the FA Cup?
Was it FA? I don't know. I've erased it from my memory.
Was it 8-1?
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Magic of the cup, whatever cup that was, it's magic. We'll
Magic.
start to talk about Tamworth then. I've had a few questions in already. Before we go on to our lineup, we always do that. I want to talk about two things mainly. The first is something that came out today. I don't know what time it came out today, but I saw that in the summer, Ruben Rodriguez, it's come out, was subject to a bid from a League One side. And Notts turned it down. Two things I take from that, or three things actually, and then I'll get your opinion, Matt. First thing is we didn't hear about it, and how good is that we didn't hear about it?
It was a theme with most of the transfers this season. Didn't hear about them.
Yeah. Second thing, we've turned it down, which means obviously there would have been money involved there, which means we're as comfortable as we can be after a pandemic, and we're feeling like we can turn that down. And three, the fact that in that exact interview I've read, Ruben Rodriguez says he would love to play as hard the division as he can, and look how he's playing this season after not leaving for a League One side. That's what I take from that.
Yeah, I mean, it says a lot about Notts' ambition that they want to keep hold of their best players, and that is something which means so much to the fans, both in terms of Ruben wanting to stay, but also in terms of what the owners see the direction of the club. It's not a cash cow. It's a football club. It is a heart of a city. It's a football club, and they want to take us places. The most surprising thing is it's not Peterborough, because Peterborough seem to love a good young player. But they are in the Championship. So without knowing the finances of the deal, it's obviously hard to delve into too much. But it says a lot about Ruben that League One teams are in for him already. And you know what? I love Ruben. I think he's a great player, but I think he'd probably say this himself. I don't think he's anywhere near what he can be as a footballer. I really do think he could push on and probably comfortably play sort of, that League One Championship level of football, because he's, he really can be properly magic, if that's a phrase, on his day.
Against Yeovil on Saturday, he was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, his first goal is just taking a player on, have the confidence. Most players would hit it first time. Second goal is a header. He's making a real habit of headers. He hit the post earlier in the season with a header. He scored a header against Torquay in the playoffs. He's just
Barnet as well this season.
Yeah, Barnet,
maybe.
and they're not just bog standard headers. They're like the one against Torquay was a good 10 yards out, top corner.
When I was writing notes for this earlier, I thought one thing I've got to talk about is how good Ruben is in the air. And I think it's so underappreciated how good he is. The man is, the word I wrote next to him was Ronaldo, and you're probably going to laugh because I'm not thinking Ronaldo's step overs, Ronaldo's 40 yards, Ronaldo's dives. I'm thinking Ronaldo in the air. And that is what he is like. He hangs in the air. He's got a bullet header on him. And for a man who isn't the most physical player in the world, isn't the most tall player in the world, he's got to be credited for his heading ability, because it's so easy for him to focus on just shooting and just using his feet, because he's incredibly talented. All credit to you, Ruben. You're good at the head. He's quickly become. I had a debate with George. It might have been on the last Pavis Perspective, and I said to George, where would you place him as a in the Notts pecking order as most important players? George had Cal Roberts first, Carl Wotton second, Ruben third. I straight away said first for me is Ruben Rodriguez. And then I think I sort of moved on from that. My point to him was that Ruben Rodriguez is the most important player in the Notts side. And I'd be tempted to join you on that one. I'd probably then put Wotton second.
because Wootton, the way we managed the game against Yeovil, which had been a problem, that started with Kyle Wootton, and then it fed into Palmer, and then it fed into Cameron. It started from Wootton holding the ball up for a good 10, 15 seconds. So, but for me, Ruben's the main man.
Yeah, you know what I was thinking when you were saying that, and was talking about who's the most important player in the Notts team. What is really nice this season is that there's a really, really good spine to that team. And I was thinking to myself, Ruben's great, but Wootton is irreplaceable. But I think Matt Palmer's arguably our best player so far this season. But then we're talking about how Kyle Cameron wins games with him being in the squad. And Slocum's really good most of the time. So there's such a solid spine in that team.
Yeah, it is. There's quality all over the pitch, and that's what I think I want to quickly talk about as well. Is Birchnell knows what's wrong. There was a video put out, wasn't there, a couple of days yesterday? Was it?
Yeah, it's quarter season review or whatever it was.
Yeah, he's so tactically aware and knowledgeable, isn't he? What did you make of that video?
I mean, it was really, really interesting. Let's put it out there. Very rarely you're going to see a manager sit down and analyze how his team plays, with statistics, with video. So it was fascinating. It really was. I'm not just saying it as an anorak. It was generally really interesting.
Shout out to the media team.
Shout out to the media team. I mean, we had stats in there. We was looking at what has, and what I will say slightly before this, what is incredibly refreshing about Notts is it's the first time in a number of years I feel as though Notts have an identity. You know how Notts are going to play, and that is so refreshing. I know a lot of people will criticize the way that Birchnell plays or prefer a more direct style of football, but this is the first time I think that how we play, and I think that's beautiful. But anyway, moving on to that. So, I mean, yes, it was incredibly refreshing to hear him speak like that and really insightful. We looked at the possession stats in which Notts topped it for the league. They topped passes for the league. They topped passing accuracy for the league. Same with touches in the box. So, some really, really positive statistics in there. But equally, we looked at a couple of them which weren't so great. So, I mean, I say weren't so great. Shots on target were third with 14. Which, it is good. It is good. It means, we're getting shots, we're creating chances, which is great. But I mean, the stat which kind of stood out, and you think, oh, Matt, were you saying all these positive things about what Birchnell and the team are doing, but we're still sat ninth? Shots against is the issue. 12 against and ninth. And that kind of summarizes why we are where we are, because, we are great going forwards. We're great with the ball, but we're giving away chances. And when you play that really high intensity and attacking football, you're gonna let things slip. And what's kind of helped, and it might sound bizarre saying this, I think going from 5 to 4 at the back has helped shore it up. And we'll come on to what we think our strongest 11 is later. I know we're going to talk about that, but I think the personnel they've got in at the moment defensively, and also the fact that with the 4 at the back, it's not as reliant. And I know we say it's 5 at the back, but it's almost 1 at the back of times, because your wing backs push forwards and your left and right centre back are overlapping. So it's effectively 1 at the back. And a lot of the times we've been caught on the counter attack. And that's when you get outnumbered. You often find it's the central defender and someone like Matt Palmer or Ed Francis, who are the 2 that are back. Whereas with that 4, you almost get an extra player because the 2 centre backs just kind of sit where they are. Really nice.
It is good. It's very good. And Chris said, people slating the stats approach. I think the stats are how stats show that we need a bit of tinkering for things to fall into place. I agree. I'm a massive advocate, and I have been ever since we started this channel, of stats. They don't tell the whole story, because you can smash a team, but the ball just doesn't fall for you that day, and then you lose the game, and the stats show that you actually. Yeah, it's a very different story. But things like expected goals, which we've had Richard from Notts County Stats on a number of times, very favourable of expected goals.
Yeah,
it's a very clever system. It works out how many you should have scored. It's not always going to be perfect. Things like that. If we're creating and getting high expected goals, then we're doing the right things. Whether it's completely right or not, if you finish games and expected goals is high, fantastic. If you finish and it's low, there you go. I remember last season looking at Swansea, they went from about third in the Championship, dropped down to sixth, and their expected goals in that period fell from like the fourth best in the league to the 24th best in the league. It reflects in your performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's to kind of put some flesh on what expected goals is. It basically works out your percentage of scoring that opportunity. So if you've got a penalty kick, your expected goal from that is probably 1.
It is 1.
If you're having a chance where you're shooting from 40 yards out and there's 11 players behind you, the expected goal will be a lot less. So expected goal is basically worked out by how many clear-cut chances you create your team. So the higher that is, it's not just how well your strikers are playing; it's more on how well your team's playing. So yeah, like I said, really is important. It's a great stat to have, and the fact that Notts, as you've seen previously on the channel when you've had previous guests on, are excelling in that area. It leads to a good pattern that, although things aren't where we want them to be at the moment, there are definitely signs that statistically we should be a lot higher up the league. And you know what? If I know you can't change time or say ifs and buts, but you know what? If we pick up from those 3 games, the Altrincham, Woking, Halifax 3, we pick up 3 or 4 points from that, which is probably what we should have got. I'm not saying we should have got anything from Altrincham, but we definitely should have won against Halifax. And we'll say we got a point. Say we get a point against Woking, we'll be generous. Yeah. We're 4th, 5th in the league. We get 6 points from that. We're 2nd in the league. So I know you can't change time, but there are a lot of positives.
But also teams like Grimsby and Boreham Wood are going to go on the same run. Maybe not lose 3 in a row, maybe lose 2, but we can still gain points on there. And that's why for me, it goes Stockport, Tamworth obviously gets Tamworth fixture out of the way, then it goes Stockport at home, Bromley at home, Grimsby away. The most important part of that whole 3-game run is to not lose against Grimsby, I think. Because if they carry on and then beat Notts, that stretches it. But there's so much to talk about. So much.
We're only a quarter way to... Sorry, Tom. I know we said half an hour, but I rabbit on like there's no tomorrow.
Nice.
I know we're a quarter of the way through the season, but it really is nothing. If you look at last year, Torquay were about... God knows, we all had Torquay up and gone at this point in the season, and they ended up in the playoffs. There's so many times we've seen teams come from really low down and go up, and equally we've seen teams that seem to be running away with it capitulating. So although not to 9th, it's still a really, really tight league. We'd like to think we've had that little blip, we've had the injuries, and now is our time, especially through the Christmas period, that we can really kick on and pick up some points. And we'll probably sit down in 4 months and we'll be 18th and we'll both cry, but we're optimistic tonight.
Yeah, the next 9 league games will shape it. There's like Dagenham in there, Stockport in there, there's Bromley, Grimsby, Chesterfield or something like that. That will shape it. We'll see where we are in like 9 games time. Well, after Tamworth, but we'll get onto our team then for the Tamworth game. Formation, I'm going to stick with 4-2-3-1. Or
yep.
I would say it's 4-2-3-1.
Yeah, I've called it a 4-4-1-1.
It can be. There's loads of variations, isn't there? A 4-1-4-1. I've seen people, but I'm going to go. Patterson will start in goal.
Yep.
Right back has to be for me Dion Kelly-Evans. He's got to get.
Yeah, I think he'll start.
He's got to get minutes in. He's still a very, very good player. And left back, it's got to be Joel Taylor, I think.
Yeah, depending on injury, I guess.
He's missed the last couple. Just obviously just a one-word answer. In the best starting 11, Chickson or Taylor for you? Just one-word answer. Chickson. Agreed. Yeah, the way he's been playing, very good. So I'm going to go Patterson in goal, both fullbacks, Taylor and Dion Kelly-Evans. Centre-backs then. What do you have centre-back wise, you think? Tamworth tomorrow.
To be honest, I don't think it'll change.
I don't
think we've got enough fit players for it to change.
Not in that position.
I know I was reading in the what Birchnell was saying or listening to his sort of pre-Tamworth talk, and he was saying that a couple of them should be back. There was Slocum, Rawlinson, and Lacey that he was on about. So one of them might fit in, but I think it'll probably be the same back two.
Yeah, and Alan says is Taylor fit. I'm not 100% sure if he's not
Good
fit.
question.
It was a niggle, but if not, Chickson.
Yeah,
Chickson comes in.
I think it was earlier in the season as well. Taylor had a bit of time off where he just said that he was not quite fit, or he'd had a little knock or something. So I don't know if it's a reoccurrence of that, or it's just managing the player. But yeah, like I said, I mean, we both think Chickson should be starting on the left back anyway, and we'll come into that in a bit. But
midfield, two then for me. I would go Ed Francis, and I would also go Frank Vincent. Good opportunity for both of them.
Yeah, I also put Frank Vincent in there. I think it's a great opportunity for him to get some game time. I stuck Matty Palmer alongside him. Hasn't missed a minute this season. So, obviously a very fit player, and he offers a lot to that team. I think with Vincent being more of what we've heard, I guess, more than seen, that he's a bit more of that defensive, almost like that Doyle kind of Francis type player. Palmer's a bit more advanced. So I think Palmer will start personally, but all we know is it's not going to be Doyle. He did say Doyle might appear on the bench, but he won't be starting.
Okay, then the three ahead of those. I would like to see Nemain continue.
Yep.
I'd like to see Cal Roberts in. I'm telling you, once Cal Roberts gets that goal, he's away. And that's frightening. Yeah. Once Cal Roberts gets the goal. We had a good effort from the edge of the box against Yeovil. Keeper palmed it away, decent save. He's almost there. And once he gets the goal, he'll go from being a 7 out of 10 to an 8.5, 9 every game. So I would like to see Nemain and Cal. And then behind in the middle, I'd like to see Cairo Mitchell.
Yep, I think he'll play tomorrow.
I like Cairo Mitchell. He needs a goal as well, and then he's away.
Yep. I think Cairo Mitchell will play. Like I said, I'm same as you. I think Nemain will play. I think the fun question is who plays up front.
I know.
I'll put it out there. I don't think there'll be as many changes as we're predicting, but
probably not.
I would like to see Cairo Mitchell play up front. Whether he plays with Wootton, I wouldn't be surprised. I think it might be a two, and it might be the two of them. But there's a whole host of players. It could be Rodriguez more advanced.
You're forgetting the main man.
Could be Roberts more advanced. It could be, could be anyone really.
You've not said his name yet. It's got to be Eli Sam. Starting up top.
I did write him down, and then thought like maybe I'm pushing it a bit to think Eli Sam's going to start. I mean,
I want him to start.
Yeah,
I do want him to start, and you know what? For me, if he starts tomorrow and doesn't show hunger, desire, doesn't put the shift in, then I'll start to drop it with him. But I can't. The way maybe it's just the fact that he scored the future Puskas Award winner, or the fact against Weirdstone he nutmegged that player then put it bottom corner. There is something there.
There is something there. This is going to sound really offensive to anyone that's a Jim O'Brien fan. I put him in the same box as Jim O'Brien. I think he is fantastic off the bench, but I'm not as keen on him starting.
Fair enough.
So, very quick one to answer Chris. 7 subs tomorrow.
7. Yeah.
3 on, 7 subs on the bench.
I think Eli Sam, what's given me hope about Eli Sam is look at the players we've signed through our scouting system. Ruben, Cal, Chickson didn't start well, but look at him now. Joel Taylor's decent. Matty Palmer, not necessarily so much through the scouting system because he was more known.
Yep.
Nemain's starting to come good. There's a reason they got Eli Sam, and we've seen glimpses of why we bought him. I just want to see him. I want to see him start a game, and I'll drop the agenda because I know a lot of people don't like him.
He's definitely got something special. I mean, it's not like the good old days. I say good old days. It wasn't good old days when you were bringing a Delroy Facey off the bench because they offered something different. And by offered something different, you meant no one could move them. Eli Sam isn't that player. He's got something about him. He's on one day he's Cristiano Ronaldo, on the other day he's, you know, Big Bert who owns the local burger shop. Yeah, there's something special about him, but it's that unpredictability which makes me slightly unsure of putting him in the starting 11. Yeah. For me, he's a player that you bring on when you're 2-0 up or you're 2-0 down. He's not the player that you bring on when you're holding a lead or say 2-0 up and holding a lead. That went well last time. It's not the player that you bring on when when that game is tight or you're holding on to something.
Yeah. I think there'll also be one surprise that we're not quite guessing or anticipating. Maybe on the bench, maybe a youth player coming in with 7 subs. Maybe someone returned. I don't know. Maybe he just goes the same team against Yeovil because it's a week until Stockport. There's no midweek game if I'm correct.
No, I don't think there is.
Myself and George bring a friend to a game. He's been looking for a team. Recently just signed for Tamworth. And now he's going to be playing. I think he'll be marking whoever's on the wing.
Tamworth also have sorry, I was to interrupt. Tamworth also have another player just to keep an eye out for. They do have a prolific striker, which some of you may remember, who goes by the name of Tyrell White. Now, for anyone that is, quite youthful or hasn't followed Notts in the last couple of years, Tyrell White very, very briefly played for Notts. He was brought in as a bit of a prodigy, I think, from Ilkeston, if my memory serves me well. Played once or twice. I think he scored a goal, but never got his chance at Notts, really. So I would be very surprised if he isn't really up for tomorrow. And if you look at what his goal record is at Tamworth, the boy knows where the net is. So don't be surprised if he is their danger man tomorrow. Yeah. Any Tamworth fans listening, I don't know much about your teams. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to say anything about him. Usually I'd say I won't score, but I also said again at half time, I went down to speak to Neil, who's been on this channel numerous times, and I said, F Young's terrible, isn't he? And then F Young scored. And then I also said before I wasn't worried about Tevon Campbell, and he scored too. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
I mean, that's the curse of the former Notts player, I guess.
I was so confident at half time at Woking. They barely got out of their own box. But anyway, after we've sort of played this Tamworth game, we go into 9 very, very tough games, but not seem to turn up for those games. So next week, Thursday, 7:30, we will be discussing the realistic expectations for the season before going into those. We'll review it after those 9. And I was going to do it tonight, but I want to wait and just see how this game pans out with players coming into the squad. We'll also be discussing next week our favourite 11, our strongest starting 11 in the formation. Matt, thank you for joining us tonight. It's been good.
Pleasure.
Been very, very good to have you on. I think people have enjoyed it. If you have, please drop a like. It helps people see our video. And also, if you're not already subscribed, please do, because something like 62% of people that watch our videos still aren't subscribed. So if you could, that would also help us out massively. And if you are traveling to Tamworth like us tomorrow, have a good day. Weather's supposed to be good, and a safe journey to Tamworth.